What's up everybody, Soul here with another sort of Convallaria video, and today we're going to go over two characters that we're about to get in the game through our nice, wonderful dungeon meshy collab, and that is Marcille and Senshi. Super duper excited about these characters. Going to go over what they got in their kit, kind of look at the Chinese side and what they got, deal with some rough translations, and give you an overall assessment of what they're going to bring and whether or not they're worth your resources. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. First and foremost, we're going to take a look at Marcille. Let's take a look at her trait. And so at 5 stars, the magic attack and health are increased by 15%. At the start of battle, she gets 2 layers of full magic. I think it's going to be translated to full mana. And then after releasing a class skill, professional skills, what it says, consumes 1 layer of that full magic. And then if you execute standby, you gain 2 layers. And for each point of energy, you increase the healing effect and damage by 8%. So really good stuff right there, really interesting. So the more energy she has, the more damage she's going to do. Let's take a look at that full magic or full mana. This is a buff where it increases her damage by 20%, and the skill's maximum range by 1. This can be stacked up to 2 times. And then when you cast a class skill, you recover 2 energy and consume 1 stack. This effect can stack up to, like it said, 2 times and cannot be dispelled or immunized. So you're getting a bonus of 2 to her range at max, 1 for 1 stack. Yeah, really interesting stuff. The only issue is that you're going to have to stand by in order to get those. You get it to start a battle, sure, but otherwise you're standing by to get that, and so that can be a little bit tough. There's gonna be turns where you're just kind of doing nothing, I guess, which that's not the end of the world, I guess. It's not it's not terrible, but it's built into her gameplay, and it's a good limiter. I don't know if it's good, but it's definitely a limiter in what she can do. Now, as we see at 1 star, her magic and health is by 3%, and she gains 1 layer of that, or 1 stack of that full mana. And then, of course, she's still consuming it when she's casting those professional skills. Now, or class skills. At 2 stars, it goes up to 6%. She starts with that 1 layer still, and then now her healing effects and damage is increased by 3% per energy that she has. So 2 stars is a decent breakpoint. We start to get that benefit. And then at 3 stars, her health and magic is increased by 9%. She starts with 2 layers, 2 stacks of that full mana. And then, of course, you know, when she stands by, she gets that 1 back. So that's really nice right there. It's not listed above. So yeah, you're getting that for just standing by, and it requires 3 stars. So this is definitely a fantastic breakpoint right here. And then, of course, your healing and damage increased by 4% per energy. And so for me, 3 stars is definitely a decent breakpoint. And then at 4 stars, your health and magic 12%. You start with 2 layers of that, or 2 stacks of that full mana, and then everything else is the same, with the exception of you get that 5% energy and healing per energy. So I think 3 stars is a good stopping point for her, in my opinion. Definitely an interesting trait. It's kind of sad she's got like a governor placed on her, a limiter, if you will, to stop her from getting overboard and doing too much. I really feel like Magic users might, they kind of deserve a little more love. Right now, the AoE game is where it's at, and then you get some damage over time, but just all out and out damage dealing, I really don't see a lot from a lot of these characters. Barrel's doing the job now, but it still requires an extra condition of the burn and scorch, and then, of course, Hasna smacks. But, she's single target only. Taking a look at her other skills, let's scroll on down here. Her innate skill, which I didn't mean to click on that. Her innate skill, let's take a look at it right here. Explosion Magic. It is a 3 energy cost. It has a range of 3, and it is an AoE. It attacks for 140% area damage and dispels 5 buffs from the target when attacking. When possessing your mana, your full mana, it deals an additional 30% damage to the target and all enemies in 3 squares of its range. So that's really nice. The range gets increased big time, and then you're dealing, extra damage for having that mana. And then you inflict no attribute buffs. So this is a pretty decent skill. 3 cost is moderate. I'd say it's right there mid. And then when you have that full mana, you're doing some pretty good damage right there at 170% total. And then boom, you know, dispelling a ton on your opponents. You're stopping them from getting attribute buffs. Really good stuff. And then you're doing additional, you know, damage. It's really good stuff in a wider range area. You get mana recovery at rank 1. And so when she's executing standby, she gains 1 layer of that magic recharge, what it says. That's that full mana. And then if you already have 2 layers of that full mana, you restore 1 energy point and 20 health to all allies within 3 squares. And they also gain attack 2. That's pretty massive. That's a big AoE buff just for free, just for having full mana. That full mana could be kind of a deal though. I don't know. This does seem really powerful otherwise, and to give energy and health to all your allies, it seems really, really nice. This definitely has a lot of potential. On the left, you have an aura. It reduces area damage taken to all allies 3 squares by 25%. We've seen this on other characters, so this is pretty decent. It's always a good option to have in your pocket. Rank 3, you've got complete and modify. This is a passive. When healthy, in a healthy state, your attacks increase by 8% and your damage is increased by 10%. When not in a debuff state, which is injured, your attack and in state in your is additionally increased by 8% and your damage is additionally increased by 10%. I think what that means is like when you're not depleted of mana, when you have that full mana, you're going to get that additional buff there. Is what I believe that is going to be reading as. Over here on the left, you've got Convenient Route. And so this is 3 energy cost as a support skill that requires a cast and is an AoE. Grants all allies within 3 squares move up 1 and immunity to move down, with all effects lasting 1 round. When you possess full mana, it grants move 2 and immunity to freeze and burn tiles. Really nice stuff right there. Really interesting and cool to see. So really good stuff there from Convenient Route. Up at rank 5, you have right over here Survival Master. This is a reaction when actively attacked, your damage is reduced by 8%, and then your environmental damage is reduced by 70%. So it's always good to see that. It's always a decent option to have in our pocket. Over here on the left is Magic Counter. It reduces magical damage taken by 15%. When receiving an active magical attack, it triggers a preemptive strike and interrupts the enemy's action. This can be triggered once per round. So it already has a niche requirement in that it has to be magical damage. It is nice that it interrupts. It's unfortunate that's only once per round. I feel like when it has such a big requirement that's gating it already, I don't think it should have a limit to how many times it can be cast, or at least it should have more leniency. So this is decent. There's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't seem great. It's kind of lackluster, in my opinion. Up here at rank 7, you get Magic Blast. This is an AoE. It deals 60% area damage, and then all allies within 3 squares, and then also reduces their magical damage by 3. This is a really big, huge AoE, and it's a big debuff in that it's doing a magical defense down by 3. It has a 4 energy cost, which is fairly high, but man, this is really nice. Huge AoE, great way to debuff. This is a great alternative if you don't have another way to get those magic defense downs out. Maybe you're lacking the Ida and so on. This is a fantastic option. And to me, this is probably one of the most exciting things in her kit, in my opinion. On the other side, you have Marcelle's Special Treatment. This is a healing instant single target that heals for 120% of her magical attack value. That's massive. And it's an instant, and it has good range at 3. However, when you cast it at 3 energy cost, it inflicts move down 5 on the target. This cannot be casted on enemies, at least as of right now, and it will absolutely stop your units from moving too much. Maybe it doesn't matter if you don't want them to move, but usually if they're needing heals and they're in trouble, they need to typically move. So this is kind of harsh, but it's funny. It's a meme. It's the anime. It's a collab. Let's have fun with it. Instant healing for such a high amount always is fantastic. Of course, there's going to have to be a drawback, and 5 down on the move is really, really tough. Up here at rank 9, you get her basic attacks. Silencing Strike, we've seen this on others. No active skill when the target is injured. Decent stuff. Over here, you have Fireball. This is a normal attack. Single target attack. It does 80% magical damage, and for each layer of full mana, before attacking, the damage is increased by an additional 30%, and 1 buff is dispelled. So, if I'm reading this right and understanding this right, this single target attack with an attack range of 3, which is pretty big, it's decent, is going to hit for 140%. That's pretty nice. It's a shame it's not an AoE attack. Regardless, it's still nice. Big, solid damage when she has full mana. This might be the way to play her. Get your full mana, run around with your single target attack there, and just use her as like a supporting role that buffs and provides energy to your team and smacks on occasion with this mana recovery in your pocket. You know, I don't know. Definitely something interesting there to be gleaned with this. Up above at rank 11, you have 2 choices, obviously. And you have Chanting Circle. This is a 4 energy cost, magical damage. It prepares for 1 turn, selects the target tile, and deals 140% damage to all enemies within 3 tiles, and applies move down 1. During preparation, the enemies in the prepared area, the preparation area, are affected with a move down 2 and vulnerable 2. That's just this move saving grace. For it to already inflict them with that move down and vulnerable 2 is pretty nice. And so you're going to be able to cast this, get that debuff to land on them and the stick, and then you're going to sit there and hopefully hit them the next turn. And yeah, decent stuff. Of course, if you have the axe again, then you have a way to get bypass that. You don't have to worry about the cast time. But regardless, you're still losing a turn effectively. And so for it to apply that debuff outright and up front is really, really nice. The other option is also a 4 energy cost, and it's called Powerful Explosion. This is 100% damage to all enemies in 3 squares of the target and dispels 3 buffs. And when possessing full mana, the range is expanded to 4 squares, and additionally ignores 20% of the target's defense. So you're getting some armor piercing in there, and that it's ignoring defense, and then of course you're getting a wider range. Really interesting, good stuff. That Powerful Explosion. Of course, this is something that doesn't take time to cast, so you're going to be able to just cast it outright and get it going. And then it's debuffing the opponent, so definitely a decent option. Seems kind of interesting overall. So, with that all said, taking a look at Marcille's rating, she gets a 0 in physical damage, a 4.5 in tanking, a 5 in healing, a 9 in magical damage, a 4.5 in buffs, 6.5 in debuffs, and a 11.5 in her utility. It seems like you want her to have full mana. It seems like she's going to have some interesting things in how she can affect the battlefield. Giving energy to your allies is honestly probably the most appealing thing in her kit, in my opinion, as well as giving that nice magic defense down in such a huge range. I can definitely see some utility for that. Otherwise, her kit is kind of lacking and is kind of hindered by that full mana requirement, having to stand by to get that mana back. It's really interesting. Her total value comes in at 41, which is not great. That is literally a mid-tier character as far as the ratings go. This is putting her at a tier 2 in the rating scale. However, it's also refreshing to see characters come in that aren't just pushing forward with power creep, and we know that characters even that fall low on the rating scale can still do a job and affect your gameplay in a big way. So it's not to say that she's a bad character. She just isn't a character that's coming in with so much in her kit and there's tons of power creep. I can respect it. Once again, have to specify that magic defense down 3 and the energy giving healed and giving back to everybody is really, really nice. It's just a passive. When you have full mana and you stand by, boom, you're giving everybody health just for standing by and energy back. She's just a constant battery. This is a nice alternative option if you don't have a tear, if you don't have Cocos and things like that. So Very interesting, decent character. Tier 2, total value of 41 on the scale. Jumping on over, let's take a look at our boy Senshi. Senshi's a very exciting character. Always love a good dwarf, so it's really nice to see him in the game. Can't wait to look at him. Let's take a look at this trait. His trait, eat well. So at 5 stars, when the battle starts, he summons a cuisine, which is an item. It's a hot pot. And then that item, cuisine, is when allies are within 2 squares of it, cooking finishes their actions, they will recover a certain amount of health and have a chance to gain happiness and fullness or satisfaction is what it's translated to at the same time, lasting for 2 turns. And then it reduces the cooking pot's health by a certain amount. And so that's further outlined down below, but what it basically is doing is it's healing. Let's just read that. When the action of the teammate is within 2 squares of cooking is completed, 25% of their health will be restored, and there is a 100% chance to attain happiness and satiety. But anyways, fullness is what I believe it's going to be translated to. Anyways, it lasts for 2 rounds and then reduces the health of the cuisine by 20%. So happiness we've seen on Coco. And so this is a buff. It reduces energy cost and the cooldown by 1. Both fantastic, wonderful thing here. Having another we get a happiness rolling is really great. The sad thing is they put a governor on him too, and that he is now giving this fullness debuff, which doesn't allow you to benefit from his cooking for 2 turns. So he's not able to spam happiness like Coco is, which you could argue Coco isn't able to do so as well as often either. But with a flag of Convallaria, you actually can get by that, and you can spam it pretty often. He's just hard governed. So he's going to have that limiter. Not everybody's going to be able to get that buff all the time. And so that's tough, in my opinion. Otherwise, the attack attribute and defense attributes are increased by 15% on him. And then he has Senshi's Satisfaction. Of course, this is a buff. And then he starts with 3 layers at 5 stars. And that is, for each layer, the damage is increased by 30% and can be stacked up to 6 layers. Holy guacamole. So 30% is a massive number. And to stack up to 6 times is 180%. So he's basically getting 180% damage buff right there. That's phenomenal. But let's take a look at the other ranks. If you look at rank 1, where you get him at, he starts a battle, he summons a cuisine pot. Cool. However, that cuisine pot heals 15% HP instead of the 25 at 5. And then there's a 30% chance to gain happiness and fullness. And the pot drops by 35%. So the pot's dying faster, and it offers less, and it only offers a 30% chance of triggering that happiness. Senshi is just like Coco. Long story boring. We will go through all of these. He is highly dependent on having rank 5. As far to 5 stars in order to be at his full effectiveness and to give you that happiness buff, which you're going to absolutely want on him. With that said, at 2 stars, he's now getting a 5% to his attack and defense. Now his cooking pot is still the 15%, still the 30%, but now it's only losing 25% health instead of 35%, so it's down a little slower. At 3 stars, he's now getting 10% to his attack and defense, and he's starting with that 1 layer of Senshi Satisfaction. We didn't have that up to this point, so 3 stars definitely is a decent break point. And then now he's giving 20% HP to everybody near the cuisine, and then still the 30% to the happiness, and so on, and then still the 25% for the reduced health of the cuisine. At 4 stars, he's now getting 2 layers of Senshi Satisfaction, 15% attack and defense to his stats, and then they're still recovering the 20%, still the 30%, but now the pot loses 20% health instead of 25. So it's effectively lasting 5 turns instead of just 4. And so really interesting there to see. Obviously, you see how it jumps at 4 stars from a 30% chance to 100. Coco's does the exact same thing in the exact same way. And so Senshi is a character you absolutely want to get to 5 stars as soon as possible to get the most out of him. And that is costly. So with that said, let's take a look at the other skills. His other innate skill that he starts with is Knockback Slams, a single target attack that knocks back. It costs 3 energy and is immediate range, as in it does not have tremendous range at all. It's just right in front of him. So that's decent. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't be mad about that. So really nice stuff. His other starting ability is his basic attack, and unlike most characters, he actually has a really interesting basic attack he starts with. That is Look at the Pot. And so as you can see right here, it's a normal attack. It's a single target. It deals 75% damage, and it knocks the target back by 2 tiles. If the target attacked is an item, he can act again, up to 1 time per round. Bizarre. I like it. I especially like it in Tower of Adversity, but it is still bizarre, in my opinion. It is not something we've seen before, and I think it's refreshing. I think it's great. In Tower of Adversity right now, on the upper floor, you can cast a boulder. This guy can come over and hit the boulder, make it roll, walk over and hit another boulder effectively. So really, really cool stuff. Definitely nice. And so he'll have some interesting uses for that reason. This is fantastic, interesting basic attack that he starts with. At rank 1, he gets Sweeping Blow. This has a 2 energy cost. It deals 80% damage to all enemies with a 3x2 area, which is an AoE, and applies defense down 1. Decent stuff. And then on the other side, you have Assisted Attack Reform. This is a passive. For every friendly unit within 2 squares, it's co-attack, by the way. Your attack is increased by 5% up to 15%. And then when an item is within range, your attack is increased by an additional 15%. So I see some synergy here between him and Ida. Definitely going to benefit from the items and working around them. Definitely some interesting stuff. They're both drifters. Really, really cool. Shout out there. So Responsibility is the next one right here. It's a passive. The skill Dinner Time no longer requires preparation. Well, let's actually read that one first. They're referring to this skill. It's time to eat, or dinner time. That is a 3 energy cost, 3 turn cooldown, support ability that prepares for 1 turn and summons a cooking pot at the target open space and grants allies within 2 squares attack up 2, and allies within 3 to 4 squares move up 2. And yeah, for 2 turns. And then after using this skill, it skips a turn because it obviously is preparing. Nice. Decent stuff. This is how you get your cuisine back onto the field after the start of battle. This ability, Responsibility, now makes it to where it doesn't require any preparation, no downtime, you don't lose your turn in order to cast that cuisine. So really good passive right there. And then at the end of the action, if the action did not cause any damage, you gain 2 layers of Senshi's Satisfaction. And this is also going to give you crit hit 2, which is, critical damage 2 and damage 2 on Senshi. Decent stuff right there for a passive. Up above, we have his reaction, where he becomes immune to scorch and burning terrain, and then when taking fire or magical damage, the damage is reduced by 40%. A little niche, but interesting. We like that, where he becomes immune to burning and or scorched terrain. Definitely good stuff there. And then the other is Eat with Peace of Mind. This is where he gains a block, and then while within 2 ranges of that cuisine, he gains a block enhancement and assisted cover. And yeah, so really nice stuff. As long as he's next to that cuisine with this reaction, he is going to tank, he is going to block, and he is going to have enhanced block, or block enhancement, I should say. Up at rank 7, he gets Aroma of Food. It grants cooking aura, so now his cuisine will have an aura effect. The defense of allies within 2 square radius of cooking by 10%. So it increases their attack and defense of all allies by 10%. Sorry, the translations, man, they're crazy. And then it also reduces the enemy's attack and defense by 10%. Really nice stuff. And then when in that cuisine range, he's also getting 1 extra stack of that Senshi's Satisfaction and 1 energy. So really nice stuff, really nice aura just for being in around that pot, which you're going to want to do. It's part of his thing. It's like kind of his whole shtick. And so you're getting extra Senshi satisfaction and extra energy. And then, of course, you're also getting a nice buff from the aura and debuffing opponents. Really interesting stuff there from Senshi. It's like 2 auras in 1, honestly. On the other side, you have Molotov Cocktail. And so we've seen this a dozen times. This is a phenomenal ability at 1 energy, 3-turn cooldown. This is a AoE fire bottle, which creates fire tiles, deals piercing damage for 10% of the target's maximum health. And yeah, really good stuff. Can't say enough about this ability. One of my favorites in the game. Love it. At rank 9, he gets Powerful Strike, 110% physical damage, has a basic attack. Nothing wrong with that. Straightforward and great. And then the other one is Burning Strike. This is 100% physical damage and then applies Burn or Scorch to the target for 2 rounds. So definitely some synergy there between him, Barrow, and Nevada and so on. So definitely interesting. Definitely an option. Nothing wrong with that. As to have in your pocket. I'd probably suggest getting this one, honestly. And then at rank 11, he gets Shocking Blow. This deals 130% damage, 2 energy cost, no cooldown. And then before attacking, he gains magic defense and physical defense too. Yeah, we've seen this. Not amazing. It's different. It's not different, but it's straightforward. It's okay. It's a decent option. On the other side, you have Strong Pot and Iron Wall as a 1-turn cooldown. And so this is support where he gains 3 stacks of Senshi's satisfaction. And then it raises the cauldron towards the front, is what it says. It reduces damage taken by 40% from front attacks and 20% from side attacks, and doesn't do anything for back attacks. Really interesting stuff there from Senshi. Really interesting. Kit, I think his kit is far more flavorful, pun intended, than Marcelle's. And so when you look at his ratings, this is how it all comes out. He has a 5 in physical damage, an 8 in tanking, a 3.5 in healing, a 0 in magic damage, an 18.5 in buffs, a 3 in debuffs, and a 9 in his utility, giving him a total ranking of 47 on his value scale. That makes him a tier 1 character. So he is right there above Marcille in the overall ratings. As far as what he's doing, I absolutely love how his ratings on the scale make an axe. That is phenomenal. Wow, not definitely really, really cool. Just ironic. Now let's talk about the cons. The downside, he requires 5 stars. There's no 2 ways about it. He doesn't have to have 5 stars, but you're going to be hard stopped at 30% gaining that happiness buff. And once you have happiness in your life, you don't ever want to live without happiness again, I promise you. And you're going to want it. You're going to want it 100% of the time. And so 5 stars is what I think he's absolutely calling for to get that. However, that fullness, that fullness debuff is harsh. If they add that to Coco and nerf her, it will gimp her so badly. And he has it, and because he has it, he is gimped so badly. I get it. It's an item you can place down and walk away, and it gives everybody that effect regardless of where he's at. So it's got to have some kind of cap on it or whatever, but man, that's tough. And with a 5-star investment, I don't only want 100% proc on that. I would really like it if it was like the cooldown on that fullness, or that fullness kind of just go away, or at least be dropped to 1 turn or something. But it is what it is. It's harsh on Senshi, and overall, he's just like Marcille in that his rating isn't over the top. It's not power creeped out like some of these newer characters that are coming in. He definitely has a governor, just like Marcille. He's coming in. He's somewhere near the mid as far as his ratings and abilities. That doesn't mean they're bad characters. It just means that they're not over the top and so overpacked with power creep that they're breaking the game. You're getting 2 interesting, decent characters that do interesting, decent things. But they're not game-breaking characters. Understand that. So spend wisely. Make your decisions. Spend wisely. With that said, as for predictions, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Marcille is most closely related to the High Priestess card. I looked at all of them. It's really tough. I expected that with these collab units and their special art. splash art, and I don't really see a huge correlation. I do see some similarities, and for Marcille, I see more with the High Priestess than others. I didn't take the time to really point anything out because there really wasn't a lot of strong detail and information, sadly. The special number's 2. There's 2 red mushrooms. There's 2 blue colored on the screen, her, and then 1 blue mushroom. The overall color scheme is somewhat similar. The High Priestess is flowing with knowledge, and books is where her interest is. Marcille does have a book, but her knowledge and interest is, of course, attack magic, and then what ends up being monster food. She's very against it at first, but regardless, that's what you see. She's flowing with magic. That is her knowledge. That is where her profession is, and so you see that in her art, and you see it does compare in between the two. And so that is where I see being her card if I had to make a prediction. And then with Senshi, I see something similar in that he is closely related to the Wheel of Fortune. I do think it's interesting that he picked 4 characters on the card, and his splash art depicts 4 characters. It's not just including himself. It's him cooking for all of them. It's almost like he's in the middle like Anubis. He's got the horns, which act like ears. Anubis got this big ears. And then, of course, he's got that full, cloak deal that he's wearing. And he's got the full cloak beard, this, that, and the third. But anyways, Fallen, Eagle, and the other units placed accordingly. Marcille being the woman with the figure 8 over her head, the infinity symbol, and so on. Like, it's really interesting. I think that is the card that closely resembles it the most. And so that's where I see being his tarot card if I had to select one. And that's after looking at all of them. I don't really see too much of a correlation between any other ones. This is the only one I really can find some correlations between. Once again, I have to stress there's not enough there for me to really pick apart and give them a good tarot card. And to be honest with you, I'm kind of fearful that that's how the future of these characters and their art is going to be, because we do know that XD Studios experimented with some AI art and things changed for a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be harder and harder to glean information from them that relates to the tarot cards, because they deviated from their value system and their storytelling and everything being centered around tarot. They went towards AI and just using AI art because it was seamless and easy. And so it's kind of hard to attach any character to the tarots when they're not taking that into consideration and they're just allowing AI to make the art. That's my spiel. That's my 2 cents on it. So that's, if I had to put it down on 2, on a tarot card per one, that's what I got. Senshi, Wheel of Fortune, and then Marcille, of course, the High Priestess. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Drop down in the comments. Get back at me and tell me all about it. Are you interested in these characters? Are you going to pull on them regardless? Does it matter that their kits really don't have a whole lot and they're kind of limited? What are you thinking? I want to know exactly what you think. Are you pulling on them still? You tell me about it. Huge shout out and thank you to my Patreon members. I'm really, really grateful for you. You guys are the ones that allow me to make the content, to get the guides, to make the pulls on characters like these, and to really make the content and get them out. So thank you so much for your support. It absolutely means the world and enables me to do what I do for our community. And speaking of our community, we have a link for our Discord down below, as well as our Patreon. Make sure you check them out, where we talk all things sort of Convallaria and then some. On the Patreon, I try to post things early and kind of give some information ahead of time. So if you want to see some things early, make sure you check that link out down below. And then, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, I will catch you later, and I wish you all the best in your Sword of Convallaria gameplay and adventures. Bye.